The morning fog was still thick over Willowbrook Farm in Kentucky when the livestock trailer rumbled down the wrong gravel driveway. Ezra Hawthorne, 67, looked up from feeding his handful of dairy cows, squinting through his wire-rimmed glasses at the massive truck that had no business being on his modest 40-acre spread. "You sure you got the right place?" Ezra called out to the driver, a burly man named Clint who was checking his paperwork with growing confusion. "Says here Willowbrook Farm, Bourbon County," Clint replied, scratching his head under his baseball cap. "Got a delivery for one bull, name of Thunderstrike. Owner paid for transport from Colorado to Kentucky." Ezra's weathered face creased into a frown. "Son, I think you got your wires crossed. I run a small dairy operation here. Haven't ordered any bull, and certainly not one with a name like that." But Clint was already opening the trailer door, eager to finish his 3-day haul and get home. "Look, mister, I just drive 'em. Paperwork says Willowbrook Farm, and this is what my GPS brought me to." What emerged from the trailer was unlike anything Ezra had ever seen on his peaceful Kentucky farm. Thunderstrike was a massive Brahman bull, nearly 2,800 pounds of pure muscle and attitude, with a distinctive hump on his shoulders and a gray coat that seemed to shimmer in the morning light. But what struck Ezra most were the bull's eyes, not wild or aggressive, but deeply intelligent and somehow sad. "That's one hell of a bull," Ezra breathed, unconsciously taking a step backward as Thunderstrike surveyed his new surroundings with what looked like resignation. "Yeah, well, he's all yours now," Clint said, already preparing to leave. "Got his health papers and registration docs in this envelope. Good luck with him." As the truck disappeared down the driveway, Ezra found himself alone with an animal worth more than his entire farm, according to the papers Clint had left behind. The registration documents told a story that made his heart sink. Thunderstrike had been rejected by 3 different breeding facilities in Colorado for aggressive tendencies and failure to perform breeding duties. "Well, big fella," Ezra said softly, approaching the temporary pen where Thunderstrike stood motionless. "Looks like we're both dealing with some kind of mix-up here." The bull's massive head turned toward Ezra's voice, and for a moment, the old dairy farmer could have sworn he saw understanding in those dark eyes. Not the wild fury he'd expected from the paperwork, but something that reminded him of his late wife Martha's rescue animals, creatures that had been hurt and needed patience more than discipline. Ezra's nearest neighbor, Delilah Riversong, arrived an hour later in her beat-up pickup truck, drawn by the commotion of the delivery. At 52, Delilah ran a small horse rescue operation on the adjacent property and had known Ezra since childhood. "Ezra Hawthorne, what in tarnation is that monster doing in your pasture?" she called out, climbing over the fence with the agility of someone half her age. "Apparently, I'm the proud owner of a rejected breeding bull," Ezra replied dryly, showing her the paperwork. "Though I suspect the real Willowbrook Farm is probably somewhere else entirely." Delilah read through the documents, her eyebrows rising higher with each page. "Ezra, do you realize what you have here? This bull's bloodline is worth a fortune. His sire was Conquistador's pride, one of the most expensive bulls ever sold at auction. Then why's he been rejected by everyone who's tried to work with him?" As if responding to the question, Thunderstrike approached the fence where they stood, moving with surprising grace for such a massive animal. Up close, both humans could see the evidence of his troubled past. Rope burns around his neck, scars on his flanks, and a wariness in his posture that spoke of harsh treatment. "Oh, you poor thing," Delilah whispered, her voice thick with compassion. "They tried to break you, didn't they?" Thunderstrike's response was to lower his enormous head until his nose nearly touched Delilah's outstretched hand. It was a gesture of trust so unexpected that both neighbors fell silent, suddenly understanding that this aggressive bull might be something entirely different than his reputation suggested. "Ezra," Delilah said quietly, "I don't think this delivery was a mistake at all. I think this bull was meant to end up exactly where he is." As the Kentucky sun climbed higher, burning off the morning fog, the old dairy farmer found himself wondering if his quiet retirement was about to become a lot more complicated. But looking at Thunderstrike's intelligent eyes and feeling the weight of destiny in the morning air, Ezra realized that some complications might just be blessings in disguise. The wrong farm was about to become exactly the right place for a bull that nobody wanted, and a lonely widower who didn't know he needed rescuing too. 3 days after Thunderstrike's unexpected arrival, Ezra discovered something that made him question everything he thought he knew about bulls. He was in the pasture repairing a section of fence when one of his dairy cows, an old Holstein named Buttercup, got her leg caught in some loose wire. The cow's distressed lowing caught Thunderstrike's attention immediately. Instead of ignoring the commotion or becoming agitated like his reputation suggested, the massive bull approached with surprising gentleness and began nudging the wire away from Buttercup's leg with his enormous head. "Well, I'll be damned," Ezra muttered, watching in amazement as Thunderstrike carefully freed the dairy cow before stepping back to give her space. Word of the incident spread quickly through Bourbon County's tight-knit farming community. By the weekend, Ezra's farm had an unusual number of visitors, all curious to see the monster bull that was supposedly terrorizing the peaceful dairy operation. "I heard he nearly killed a man in Colorado," said Virgil Ashworth, a neighboring cattle rancher who'd driven over with his morning coffee still steaming in his thermos. "That's funny," Ezra replied, pointing to where Thunderstrike was peacefully grazing alongside the dairy cows, "because all he's done here is help my old Buttercup when she got tangled in wire." Delilah arrived that afternoon with Dr. Magnolia Clearwater, the county's most experienced large animal veterinarian. At 45, Dr. Clearwater had seen every type of livestock behavior imaginable, but even she was puzzled by Thunderstrike's gentle demeanor. "His medical records show multiple incidents of aggressive behavior," she said, reviewing the documents while observing the bull from a safe distance. "Charging handlers, refusing to be led, destroying equipment. But look at him now." Thunderstrike was lying in the shade of an old oak tree, completely relaxed, while several of Ezra's dairy cows grazed peacefully around him. The scene looked more like a pastoral painting than a dangerous animal situation. "Dr. Clearwater," Delilah said thoughtfully, "what if those previous owners were the problem, not Thunderstrike?" The veterinarian considered this possibility while watching the bull's behavior. "It's possible. Bulls are incredibly intelligent animals, and they respond to how they're treated. If he was handled roughly or kept in stressful conditions, he might have been defending himself rather than being naturally aggressive," Ezra finished. That evening, as Ezra made his usual rounds feeding the animals, Thunderstrike did something that stopped the old farmer in his tracks. The massive bull approached the fence and gently took a handful of hay directly from Ezra's weathered hands, his movements so careful that his lips barely grazed the farmer's palm. "Martha always said animals know good hearts from bad ones," Ezra whispered to himself, remembering his late wife's wisdom about the rescue animals she'd cared for over the years. The next morning brought an unexpected phone call that would change everything. Ezra answered on the third ring to hear an agitated voice on the other end. "This is Brutus Ironclad from Ironclad Breeding Ranch in Colorado," the caller barked. "I'm looking for a bull that was supposed to be delivered to Willowbrook Breeding Facility last week. Gray Brahman goes by Thunderstrike. My GPS tracker shows the transport truck stopped at your location." Ezra's heart sank as he realized their peaceful interlude was about to end. "Yes, sir, he's here. Driver said he had the right address." "Well, he didn't. That bull is scheduled for transport to a livestock auction tomorrow. He's a dangerous animal that's caused nothing but trouble, and I want him gone. I'm sending another truck to pick him up this afternoon." After hanging up, Ezra walked slowly to the pasture where Thunderstrike was sharing morning sunshine with the dairy cows. The bull's calm presence had transformed the entire atmosphere of the farm, bringing a peace that Ezra hadn't felt since Martha's death 2 years earlier. "I'm sorry, big fella," Ezra said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "Looks like your vacation's over." Thunderstrike approached the fence and rested his massive head against Ezra's shoulder, as if sensing that their time together was coming to an end. In that moment, the old dairy farmer made a decision that would surprise everyone who knew his cautious nature. He pulled out his phone and called Brutus Ironclad back. "Mr. Ironclad, this is Ezra Hawthorne again. I'd like to make you an offer for that bull." The conversation that followed would set in motion events that nobody in Bourbon County could have predicted, least of all Ezra himself. But looking into Thunderstrike's trusting eyes, he knew that some decisions had to be made with the heart rather than the head. The gentle giant had found his home, and Ezra had found his purpose again. Now he just had to convince a hard-nosed Colorado rancher that sometimes the best place for a rejected bull is exactly where he's not supposed to be. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long that Ezra wondered if Brutus Ironclad had hung up on him. Finally, the Colorado rancher's gruff voice crackled through the speaker. "You want to buy Thunderstrike? Mister, do you have any idea what kind of liability you'd be taking on? That bull has cost me more in insurance claims than he's worth." "How much?" Ezra asked simply, surprising himself with his directness. 15,000, and that's just to get him off my books. But I'm telling you, Hawthorne, you'll regret it. That animal's got the devil in him." Ezra looked out at Thunderstrike, who was gently grooming one of the dairy cows with his rough tongue, displaying the kind of social behavior that contradicted everything in his file. "I'll give you 10,000 cash, and you never have to worry about him again." The negotiation that followed revealed more about Thunderstrike's troubled history than the official paperwork ever had. Brutus Ironclad, it turned out, had purchased the bull 2 years earlier for his premium bloodlines, expecting him to become the cornerstone of an elite breeding operation. "Spent 43,000 on him at auction," Brutus admitted reluctantly. "But he wouldn't cooperate with our breeding program, got aggressive with handlers, destroyed thousands of dollars worth of equipment. 3 different facilities rejected him before I got stuck with him." "What if the problem wasn't the bull?" Ezra asked quietly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Maybe he just needed the right environment, different handling, patience instead of force." Brutus laughed bitterly. "Old man, you sound like my ex-wife talking about her rescue cats. This is livestock, not a therapy session." But when Ezra mentioned that Thunderstrike had been peacefully coexisting with dairy cows and showing protective behavior toward other animals, something in Brutus's tone shifted. "You're serious about this purchase?" the Colorado rancher asked. "Dead serious. 10,000, final offer." "Deal. But I want it in writing that you're taking full responsibility. Any injuries, property damage, lawsuits, they're all on you." That afternoon, while Delilah helped him navigate the legal paperwork for purchasing Thunderstrike, Ezra received another unexpected call. This one was from someone whose voice made his hands shake. "Daddy? It's Luna." Ezra's daughter, Luna Hawthorne Morrison, lived in California with her tech executive husband and 2 teenage children. She hadn't spoken to her father in over a year, their relationship strained since Martha's death when Ezra had refused to sell the farm and move closer to their family. "Luna, honey, what's wrong?" Ezra asked, his heart racing. "I heard from Delilah about some bull you bought. Daddy, are you losing your mind? You're 67 years old, living alone on that farm. What if something happens to you?" "Nothing's going to happen, sweetheart. This bull is gentle as a lamb." "That's not what the internet says," Luna replied, and Ezra could hear typing in the background. "I looked up this Thunderstrike online. There are videos of him attacking handlers, news stories about injuries. Daddy, this is insane." The conversation that followed was painful but necessary. Luna revealed that she and her brother Phoenix had been discussing bringing Ezra to live with one of them, selling Willowbrook Farm, and ending what they saw as his dangerous isolation in rural Kentucky. "We love you, Daddy, but we can't keep worrying that we'll get a call saying you've been hurt or worse, and nobody would know for days." After Luna hung up, promising to fly out within the week to assess the situation, Ezra sat on his porch feeling more alone than he had since Martha's funeral. But as evening fell, Thunderstrike approached the fence and stood quietly nearby, as if sensing his human's emotional turmoil. "They think I'm crazy, big fella," Ezra said softly. "Maybe they're right. Lonely old widower buys dangerous bull he can't afford." Thunderstrike's response was to lower his massive head and rest it gently against the fence rail, close enough that Ezra could feel the warmth of his breath. "But you're not dangerous, are you?" Ezra continued, reaching through the fence to stroke the bull's neck. "You're just misunderstood. Like me, I guess." That night, Dr. Magnolia Clearwater called with news that would complicate everything even further. "Ezra, I've been researching Thunderstrike's bloodlines," she said, excitement clear in her voice. "Do you realize what you actually own? His genetics are extraordinary. With the right breeding program, he could sire calves worth tens of thousands of dollars each." "Dr. Clearwater, I'm a dairy farmer, not a cattle breeder." "But you could be." "Ezra, this bull could transform not just your farm, but your entire financial future. You're sitting on a gold mine." As Ezra processed this information, he realized that Thunderstrike's arrival at his farm might not have been a simple delivery mistake after all. The gentle giant who'd been rejected by everyone else had somehow found his way to exactly the right place, bringing with him possibilities that neither man nor bull had ever imagined. The question was whether Ezra would have the courage to embrace a future that looked nothing like the quiet retirement he'd planned, especially with his children threatening to intervene and the weight of Thunderstrike's troubled reputation still hanging over them both. But looking out at the bull peacefully grazing under the Kentucky stars, Ezra felt something he hadn't experienced since Martha's death. Hope for tomorrow. Luna Hawthorne Morrison arrived at Willowbrook Farm on a crisp Thursday morning, her rental car's GPS having led her through the winding Kentucky backroads she'd once known by heart. At 41, Luna had inherited her father's stubborn streak, but wrapped it in the polished confidence of a successful marketing executive. She stepped out of her sedan wearing designer jeans and city boots, completely unprepared for what she was about to witness. "Daddy, where's this dangerous bull I've been reading about?" she called out, finding Ezra in the barn organizing feed buckets with the methodical precision that had always defined his daily routines. "Out in the main pasture with the girls," Ezra replied, referring to his dairy cows. "But Luna, before you see him, I need you to understand." "I understand plenty," Luna interrupted, pulling out her smartphone. "I've read every article, watched every video. This Thunderstrike has injured multiple people. What I don't understand is why my father would risk his life for some animal he doesn't even need." Their conversation was interrupted by Delilah's arrival, accompanied by a distinguished-looking man in his 50s, wearing a perfectly pressed shirt and carrying an expensive leather briefcase. "Ezra, I hope you don't mind," Delilah said, slightly out of breath from excitement. "This is Dr. Sterling Blackwood from the University of Kentucky's Agricultural Extension. He drove up from Lexington after I told him about Thunderstrike's bloodlines." Dr. Blackwood stepped forward with the measured confidence of someone accustomed to dealing with valuable livestock. "Mr. Hawthorne, I've been studying your bull's genetic profile, and I needed to see him in person. What I'm about to tell you will sound incredible, but can we please just see this supposed monster first?" Luna interjected impatiently. The four of them walked toward the main pasture, where Thunderstrike stood grazing peacefully among the dairy cows like a gentle patriarch watching over his family. But it was what happened next that left everyone, including Luna, completely speechless. A small border collie came racing across the pasture, chasing a tennis ball that had been thrown by someone from the neighboring property. The dog, completely focused on its toy, ran directly into the path of Thunderstrike's massive hooves. Any other bull would have either spooked or trampled the small animal. Instead, Thunderstrike immediately stopped moving, carefully lifted one enormous hoof over the dog, and waited motionlessly until the collie safely retrieved its ball and scampered away. Then, as if nothing had happened, he resumed grazing. "Sweet Jesus," Luna whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "That's impossible," Dr. Blackwood said, his clinical composure cracking. "Bulls don't possess that kind of spatial awareness or protective instinct toward other species." But Thunderstrike wasn't finished demonstrating his extraordinary nature. As they watched in amazement, he approached the fence where they stood, moving with deliberate gentleness. Instead of the aggressive posturing his reputation suggested, he lowered his massive head and made soft rumbling sounds that seemed almost conversational. He's trying to talk to us," Luna said wonderingly, all her preconceptions crumbling in real time. Dr. Blackwood opened his briefcase with trembling hands and pulled out a thick folder of genetic analysis papers. "Mr. Hawthorne, what I'm about to tell you will explain everything you've witnessed. Thunderstrike isn't just any bull. His genetic markers indicate he possesses an extremely rare combination of intelligence genes that appear perhaps once in every 10,000 births." "What does that mean in plain English?" Ezra asked. "It means your bull is essentially a genius. His cognitive abilities are off the charts for his species. The aggression reported at other facilities wasn't meanness. It was frustration. Imagine being incredibly intelligent but trapped in situations where no one understands your needs or communication attempts." Luna sank down onto a nearby fence post, her marketing executive composure completely shattered. "You're telling me my father accidentally acquired a super-intelligent bull?" "Not just intelligent," Dr. Blackwood continued, his excitement growing. "Based on his behavior patterns and genetic profile, Thunderstrike could revolutionize our understanding of bovine cognition. Universities would pay hundreds of thousands just to study him. Delilah had been unusually quiet during this revelation, but now she stepped forward with tears in her eyes. Ezra, do you remember what Martha used to say about animals choosing their people? Ezra nodded, his own voice thick with emotion. She always said the right animals find their way to the right humans when both need healing most. This wasn't a delivery mistake, Delilah said softly. This was Martha sending you exactly what you needed, exactly when you needed it. As if responding to the mention of Martha's name, Thunderstrike approached the fence where Ezra stood and gently pressed his forehead against the old farmer's chest in a gesture of such profound affection that even Dr. Blackwood fell silent. "Daddy," Luna said, her voice breaking, "I came here to convince you to sell this place and move to California. But looking at him, looking at you both, I think maybe I'm the one who needs to reconsider some things." That evening, as news of Thunderstrike's extraordinary abilities began spreading through academic and agricultural circles, Ezra realized that his quiet retirement had ended forever. But instead of fear, he felt a deep sense of purpose that had been missing since Martha's death. The rejected bull who was sent to the wrong farm had turned out to be exactly the right miracle for a lonely widower who didn't know he was waiting to be rescued too. And the discovery that shocked everyone was just the beginning of a story that would change not only their lives, but the scientific understanding of what animals are truly capable of when they find their perfect human. By Monday morning, Ezra's quiet farm had transformed into a circus. News vans lined the gravel road leading to Willowbrook Farm, their satellite dishes reaching toward the Kentucky sky like mechanical sunflowers. The story of the genius bull who'd been accidentally delivered to a small dairy farm had captured national attention overnight. "Mr. Hawthorne, Channel 7 News!" shouted a perfectly coiffed reporter as Ezra attempted to feed his dairy cows. "Can you tell us about your super-intelligent bull?" "CBS Morning Show would like to interview you and Thunderstrike," called another journalist, waving her microphone like a weapon. Ezra retreated to his kitchen, overwhelmed by the chaos that had erupted around his peaceful property. Through the window, he could see Thunderstrike standing at the far edge of the pasture, as far from the commotion as possible, his intelligent eyes clearly disturbed by the invasion. Luna, who had extended her stay indefinitely, fielded phone calls with the efficiency of someone accustomed to managing media attention. "No, my father will not be appearing on any reality shows," she said firmly into her phone, "and absolutely no film crews in the pasture with Thunderstrike." The most persistent caller was Roderick Goldstein, a billionaire cattle investor from Texas who'd been trying to reach Ezra for 3 days straight. "Mr. Hawthorne." Goldstein's smooth voice carried the confidence of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. "I'm prepared to offer you $2 million for Thunderstrike. Cash. Today. $2 million. The number hit Ezra like a physical blow. It was more money than he'd see in 10 lifetimes of dairy farming, enough to secure his future and leave something substantial for his children. That's a lot of money, Mr. Goldstein." "It's just the beginning. With Thunderstrike's genetics and intelligence, we could create a breeding program worth tens of millions. I'm talking about revolutionizing the entire cattle industry." After hanging up, Ezra sat in his kitchen staring at the number he'd written on a napkin. $2,000. Outside, reporters continued shouting questions. Helicopters circled overhead, and his peaceful farm felt more like a battlefield than a home. Dr. Sterling Blackwood arrived that afternoon with a convoy of vehicles from the University of Kentucky, including a mobile veterinary lab and several graduate students with clipboards and measuring devices. "Ezra, we need to conduct comprehensive cognitive testing on Thunderstrike," Dr. Blackwood explained, his academic excitement barely contained. "The preliminary observations suggest intelligence levels we've never documented in bovines. This could rewrite textbooks." But when they approached Thunderstrike's pasture, the bull's reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. The massive animal who'd shown such gentleness and trust now pressed himself against the back fence, his eyes wide with what could only be described as panic. "He's terrified," Luna observed, her marketing background helping her read the situation clearly. "All these strangers, all this attention, it's traumatizing him." Dr. Blackwood frowned, consulting his notes. This is consistent with his history at the Colorado facilities. High intelligence combined with sensitivity to environmental stress could explain his previous behavioral problems. Delilah, who'd been watching from her truck, finally approached the group with fire in her eyes. Y'all are about to undo everything good that's happened here. Look at that bull. He's shutting down just like he did in Colorado. As if to prove her point, Thunderstrike let out a low, mournful sound that seemed to echo across the entire farm. It was a cry of distress that made every person present feel like they were witnessing something precious being destroyed. Everyone needs to leave, Ezra said suddenly, his voice cutting through the academic chatter. Right now. All of you. Mr. Hawthorne, surely you understand the scientific importance, Dr. Blackwood began. I understand that Bull is scared and nobody seems to care about that except him being worth money or fame, Ezra interrupted, showing more backbone than Luna had seen from her father in years. This is private property, and you're all trespassing. It took an hour to clear everyone out, but as the last news van disappeared down the driveway, a remarkable transformation occurred. Thunderstrike slowly approached the fence where Ezra stood alone, his massive frame still trembling slightly from the stress of the day. I'm sorry, big fella, Ezra said softly, reaching through the fence to stroke the bull's neck. I let them turn you into a spectacle. That wasn't right. Thunderstrike's response was to press his forehead against Ezra's chest, the same gesture of trust and affection he'd shown since his arrival. But now there was something desperate in the contact, as if the bull was clinging to the one human who'd ever seen him as more than a commodity. Daddy, Luna said, approaching carefully. That Texas investor called again. He's increased his offer to $3 million. $3 million. The number was incomprehensible. Ezra could sell the farm, buy Luna and her brother houses, ensure his grandchildren's college educations, and still have enough left over to live comfortably for the rest of his life. But looking into Thunderstrike's trusting eyes, Ezra realized that some things couldn't be measured in dollars. The bull who'd arrived by mistake had brought purpose back to his life, given him something to care about beyond just existing from one day to the next. Luna, he said quietly, call Mr. Goldstein back and tell him Thunderstrike isn't for sale. Not for $3 million, not for any amount. Daddy, are you sure? That's an incredible amount of money. I'm sure, sweetheart. This bull trusted me when nobody else would. I'm not about to betray that trust now. As father and daughter stood together watching Thunderstrike gradually relax in the evening light, both understood that they'd just witnessed something rare in the modern world, a person choosing loyalty over profit, relationship over riches. The media storm would continue, the offers would keep coming, and the pressure would only intensify. But at the heart of Willowbrook Farm, an old man and a misunderstood bull had found something worth more than all the money in the world. Unconditional trust. Now they just had to figure out how to protect it from a world that wanted to turn their friendship into a fortune. 6 months later, Willowbrook Farm had transformed into something neither Ezra nor Thunderstrike could have imagined. The media attention had eventually died down, but what remained was far more meaningful. A steady stream of visitors who came not to gawk or exploit, but to learn. Dr. Magnolia Clearwater had partnered with Ezra to establish the Thunderstrike Institute for Animal Intelligence, a small research facility that studied bovine cognition in natural, stress-free environments. Graduate students from universities across the country came to observe Thunderstrike's remarkable behaviors, but always under strict protocols that prioritized the bull's well-being over scientific curiosity. The key breakthrough, Dr. Clearwater explained to a group of visiting veterinary students, was understanding that intelligence in large animals requires emotional security to fully manifest. Thunderstrike's genius was always there. He just needed the right environment to express it safely. Luna had made the most surprising decision of all. After months of flying back and forth between California and Kentucky, she'd convinced her husband to let her work remotely and had moved into Martha's old craft room, helping her father manage the unexpected complexities of running what had become an internationally recognized research site. I never thought I'd say this, Luna told Delilah one morning as they watched Ezra and Thunderstrike work together on a cognitive assessment that resembled more of a game than a test. But I think Mama sent him that bull for both of them. The assessment they were observing had become legendary in animal intelligence circles. Ezra would place colored blocks in different patterns, and Thunderstrike would rearrange them according to increasingly complex rules. The bull's problem-solving abilities had surpassed those of many primates, but what amazed researchers most was the obvious joy both man and animal took in their daily sessions together. "He's not just intelligent," observed Dr. Cassandra Moonfeather, a leading animal psychologist from Stanford who'd become a regular visitor. "He's emotionally sophisticated in ways we're only beginning to understand. Watch how he modifies his behavior based on Ezra's mood, how he offers comfort when the old man seems tired or sad." But the most remarkable transformation wasn't in Thunderstrike. It was in Ezra himself. The lonely widower who'd been slowly fading away after Martha's death had rediscovered purpose and passion. He'd learned to use a computer to document their daily interactions, had co-authored 3 scientific papers, and had become an unlikely advocate for revolutionary approaches to animal care. "You know," Ezra told a journalist from National Geographic during their final interview, "everyone wants to focus on how smart Thunderstrike is. But the real miracle isn't his intelligence, it's his capacity for forgiveness." "What do you mean?" "This bull was abused, rejected, labeled as dangerous by people who should have known better. He had every reason to hate humans. But when he found the right environment, the right relationship, he chose trust over fear. That's not intelligence, that's wisdom." The phone call that would test everything they'd built came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Roderick Goldstein, the Texas billionaire, had a new proposition. "Mr. Hawthorne, I've been watching your little operation for months." Goldstein's voice carried the same confidence it always had, but with a new undertone of respect. "I'm not calling to buy Thunderstrike anymore. I want to buy your entire approach." "I'm not following you, Mr. Goldstein. I want to franchise the Thunderstrike method, set up facilities across the country using your techniques. You and your daughter could oversee the operation, train handlers, revolutionize how we work with intelligent animals. We're talking about $100 million industry, Hawthorne." The offer was staggering, but it came with a catch. Thunderstrike would become the centerpiece of a traveling exhibition, demonstrating his abilities at agricultural shows and conferences nationwide. He'd be comfortable, well cared for, but constantly on display. That evening, as Ezra sat with Thunderstrike in their favorite spot under the oak tree, he posed the question that had been weighing on his heart. "What do you think, big fella? Ready to become famous and help other animals like yourself?" Thunderstrike's response was to rest his massive head in Ezra's lap, a gesture that had become their most intimate form of communication. But this time, something felt different. The bull's breathing was labored, his usual alertness dimmed by something that made Ezra's chest tighten with worry. Dr. Clearwater's examination the next morning revealed what Ezra had feared. At 12 years old, Thunderstrike was showing early signs of the heart condition that often affected large bulls. Not immediately life-threatening, but a reminder that their time together, however miraculous, was finite. "How long?" Ezra asked quietly. "Could be years, could be months. Bulls this size, this age, we just don't know." That afternoon, Ezra called Roderick Goldstein with his final answer. "Mr. Goldstein, I appreciate your offer, but Thunderstrike's traveling days are over. He's earned the right to spend whatever time he has left in peace on his own terms." "Hawthorne, you're walking away from a fortune." "No, sir. I'm walking towards something more valuable than money, keeping a promise to a friend who trusted me when nobody else would." As Ezra hung up the phone, Luna appeared beside him with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face. "Daddy, I'm proud of you. Mama would be proud too." That evening, as the Kentucky sun set over Willowbrook Farm, an old man and an extraordinary bull sat together under their oak tree, surrounded by the dairy cows who'd become their extended family. The world still called occasionally with offers and opportunities, but Ezra had learned to measure wealth in moments like this. Quiet, precious, and impossible to put a price on. Thunderstrike had been rejected by everyone who'd tried to own him, sent to the wrong farm by accident, and had found exactly what he'd been searching for all along, a human who valued his heart as much as his mind. And Ezra had discovered that sometimes the best things in life really do come to those who open their hearts to creatures that nobody else wants. Because in saving them, we often find that they've been saving us right back. The rejected bull and the lonely widower had both found their home, and nothing in the world could be worth more than that. In this story of unexpected miracles and the courage to choose love over profit, a delivery mistake becomes the greatest blessing of two lives, proving that sometimes the wrong turn leads to exactly the right destination. Rejected bull was sent to the wrong farm, and what happened left? Everyone speechless.